Telling a story in an illustration is not difficult. In this video, I'll show all the essential tools you'll need to bring your idea to life. However, I wanted to make this video a bit different, so for every technique, I'll introduce a beginner-friendly way to use these tools and then show a more advanced level for that idea. Let's start with a simple subject placement. Ilya Repin's "They did not expect him" painting has been analyzed with eye tracking data. See how this area in particular has a clear hotspot. The rule of thirds grid can be placed on any aspect ratio, but your viewer's eye will still gravitate towards these hotspots. This also has an area where the character is looking directly at us, and as human beings, we are prone to looking at direct gaze. So I'm using this same trick both in composition and by using the character's gaze to attract the attention here. Now, I'm not saying that you need to place your subjects in these points, but you can still use these as starting points for leading lines to direct the attention to where you want that attention to go to. An easy mistake here is to have an element here that is not a focus point for your idea and accidentally making it compete with your message. Even if you are not using the rule of thirds, you still need to be aware of it so that it doesn't accidentally ruin your composition. Leading lines in simple terms are lines that guide the viewer's eye toward your focal point. But these lines don't always have to be literal. Sometimes a leading line can be a direction of movement, like the flow of a waterfall here, or even the direction of a character's gaze. Look at this eye tracking data. It shows how the subject's gaze directs attention, pulling the viewer's eye back to the focal point, even from the corner of the composition. Leading line can even be the implied direction of light. In my process, the initial sketch is usually quite messy, but I use this simple method to paint myself out of that chaotic mess. Every story can be divided into either a main character or a stage for the scene. So when I have messy areas like these, I simply clean them up by deciding if it's a main character or a stage. This dark area of foliage works as a stage, so I give it less detail. It is also an important part of checkerboarding in this painting. Checkerboarding is a technique of dividing your picture plane to dark and light areas to build contrast for your elements to be clearly visible. An advanced way to use checkerboarding is to give the checkerboarding pieces not just dark and light values, but also panels that create less contrast in less important areas of your composition. You can even use this in expressive paintings that might look spontaneous and chaotic. See how the checkerboarding in this painting gets way more intense here, and out here in the distance, we still have very clear checkerboarding blocks, but they're coming closer together in value. You're going to always need something that lets your work breathe and make that contrast be the exception. In all composition tricks, what really matters is that what is the exception gets the attention. So if you have a busy painting, then the area that breathes or has like very clean areas, that gets the attention. If you have a very simplistic minimal piece, the area that you have the detail, that gets the attention. Same goes for color. If you have a very dark scene, the light area gets the attention. So think about what you want to show in your piece and make that be the exception in your composition. So to use checkerboarding in a more advanced way, also give your panels a second pass where you build towards those important meeting points between light and dark areas. A quick but important sidebar here. Before this live stream started, I woke up to the idea that today I want to be painting a huge cow, and I have no idea how to draw cows. So when my creativity gives me an idea like this, I know that I can't say no. So I had 4 hours to just absolutely panic draw cows the entire day before the live stream even started. I wanted to say this because it sounds like I have everything in control and I'm sharing all these useful composition tools, but I still need to study everything that I haven't added to my visual library like everybody else. I wanted to say this because I think it's often forgotten. in many of these videos, and studies are a real big part of painting. Everything that you have in your visual library, you need to put it in there by sketching, no matter how long you have been painting. Now let's talk about silhouettes. Silhouettes are a simple way to make your shapes read, but there are two ways to make them even better. What makes this silhouette is not just the shape, but the gradient behind it. In the end, this cliff face is going to have a lot of noisy detail, but the gradient here will wash away all of that detail and focus the attention around the silhouettes in the foreground instead. This style of varying level of detail can also be one more way to keep the eye moving throughout otherwise monotonous area. See this brick wall here? With a simple gradient, we can create movement, and you can use this trick in any area of the painting where you have a lot of detail that is repeating across your picture plane. In two-dimensional illustrations, you always need a little bit more clarity to explain each shape, as we can't circle around the subjects or see them move. Silhouettes can also make a painting more messy and harder to read, and I'm doing that mistake right here. See how the silhouette of this foliage mass here in the background has a really active edge. What makes this even worse is that this interesting shape is cutting way too close to my subject in the foreground, making it harder to read. Here, I have fixed this mistake, but I just wanted to highlight how the silhouette edges build a lot of tension, and that's not always a good thing. Think about the empty areas in your painting not as a mistake, but something that is needed for the eye to separate between different elements. And that requires a lot of space. And in my experience, the more graphic your illustration style is, the more empty space you need for those shapes to read, and the shape design needs to be way more deliberate the more simplistic you go with your style. All of these composition tools are for building a story, and to make that story work, you either have to plan it beforehand or simply stay curious while you are working on your painting to find out what that painting is actually about. Not just on a superficial level, what does this painting say about you and your values? For example, I wanted the cow to appear almost mythical in this, so I added the foliage, so we're not quite sure if it's just some separate plants or actually part of this creature. Lighting also played a big part in this. One way to bring out the scale here is that this light is only hitting a portion of this cow creature, making it look a little bit bigger. This cow needs its own space. It can be quite dangerous if it suddenly is disturbed and is spooked. To protect other people and creatures from simply being stomped to death by its massive hooves, I added this bell on its neck, like a warning that this cow exists here. But as this cow clearly likes to have long spa days near this waterfall, the bell gets rusty really easily. So our heroes here are approaching it, hoping to change the bell into a fancy new one. My dog Vivi is a Welsh Cardigan Corgi. They are cow herding dogs, and despite their small size, they have massive egos that make them utterly fearless. I wanted to show that urgency by having the lead tight with this forward lean, and it's just one more composition tool as a way to get the viewer's eye move between these 2 points. It's a leading line with implied direction. Telling a compelling story through an illustration is not just about giving the viewers one single thing, because everyone reads images differently. Even though the name of this painting, The Bell Changers, refers to our little expedition party here in the foreground, I wanted the cow to be the real main character in this story. To show respect for this creature and elevate it into a more holy being, I made the fabric holding the bell blue. And I also wanted to show the passage of time by having this blue and the new bell fabric have clear saturation difference. Direction also matters. This cow is far away. That's why there's a whole backpack with sleeping mattress needed to make this trip to do the bell chains. But what also subconsciously illustrates this is that the cow is on the left, because all journeys that are far away go to the left. This also gives this cow that divine aura, and our brave little heroes are like normal people, and that's why they are on the right. If I flip this canvas, the story would literally fall apart. So think about the direction in your painting, as it can make or break that entire story. I covered this more in depth in my recent membership composition checklist lecture that is taken directly from my concept art classes. That video, along with all other art lessons, can be seen by hitting the join button on this channel. I don't want to give people a right way to read this image, but for me, the painting represents a complex relationship with this massive, almost beast-like creature. It can seem scary, but with enough distance and space, it will let you be in peace as long as you get out of its way. In turn, it will let you change the bell every now and then, because I can't imagine either of these two climbing all the way up there to do this bell switch. Even if you have a clear idea what your story is about, I think the best way to make it more memorable is to really dig in deeper and find the hidden levels in that story. What do these places or events mean for you? Also, let people read your art in their own way. It doesn't matter what I think this painting is about. When people see it in their own way, it can reveal things about them. And I think that is serving the real purpose of art. Another easy but powerful way to talk to your audience on a subconscious level is shape design. If we remove the characters, notice how simple this environment really is. This makes the eye latch onto the details that break that simplicity. Remember, what is different gets the attention. We can even break down the picture plane into masses, and again, this is one more tool where you can concentrate the size of these masses to crystallize around and on your subject. When it comes to the smallest details, you can use their shape language to echo your main themes. This creates visual pairs that make your supporting elements consistent with what the painting is about. See these foreground plants in here. They could be almost any plant shape possible, but if you pay attention, they're actually just echoes of the cow tail hidden in plain sight. Kind of telling the viewer that this is what this story is about. Now, does your viewer actually care about all of this? I'm going to be honest and say that some don't. But your art shouldn't just be for everybody. When you publish your art, you have to trust that the right people will see it and their attention is the only thing that matters. When you as a viewer explore a painting and find these sort of hidden levels of meaning, that's the most rewarding experience anyone can have, because it's your audience showing that they care enough to want to know what your art means. And you can show up for that conversation as an artist with these design choices and let them know that their time investment is worth that effort. They might show up for your art because it's pretty, scary, or whatever, but what makes your art memorable is the stories your audience gets to experience through seeing your work. And that experience is different for everyone. I truly feel like your job as an artist isn't to create a fixed experience, but to enable exploration, where each viewer can uncover meaning in their own way. If you'd like to learn more about painting in Procreate and creating compositions, check out my course on Gumroad. Link is in the description. For more free tutorials, watch these videos next. I'm Mikko, and I want you to make art that tells your stories as well. I'll see you in the next one.